Hey guys and welcome. This is going to be my 2025 NHL Playoff Prediction. I'm going to start down here in the East with Carolina versus New Jersey. I think Carolina is going to make quick work of New Jersey, especially because of the injuries that New Jersey has. With that, I have Carolina in 5. Next up, we got the Washington Capitals versus the Montreal Canadiens. I personally don't think the Capitals have looked very good since Ovi finished his Gretzky chase. On the Montreal side, Demidov looks pretty good, and I think Montreal's young stars are going to feed off that Bell Center energy, and it's going to be Montreal in 6. With that, we're going to move on to the Battle of Florida with the Florida Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Florida did make some good moves at the trade deadline, but Tampa Bay has looked like the better team as of recently. Honestly, I think this one's a toss-up, but I have Tampa in 7. We move on from the Battle of Florida onto the Battle of Ontario. We got the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Ottawa Senators, and I think the Leafs have looked good, especially Marner and Nylander and Austin Matthews when he's been in the lineup. But once again, it's the Leafs. Don't make me regret this, but I'm taking Leafs in 6. Now let's move over to the West Coast where we have the annual matchup of Kings versus Oilers. Kemper has looked really good this year for the Kings, and the Oilers just don't seem to have the offensive punch that they did last year. Don't let McDavid and Draisaitl get going, and I think that's why the Kings end it early. Kings in 5. With that, we move on to Vegas versus Minnesota, and I don't think Minnesota is going to be able to keep up with Vegas, so I have Vegas in 5. With that, we move on to my team, the Colorado Avalanche versus the Dallas Stars. One thing that I think is heavily going to favor the Avs is how much rest they got before the playoffs. With that, they're expected to come in with a healthy lineup, and I think Dallas's defense looks weaker than it has, especially with Miro Heiskanen being hurt. With that being said, Mikko and Ottinger both are big playoff performers, so the Avs have to be careful of that. And I think the Avs finally take down the Dallas Stars that's bothered this core for a few years. I have Avs in 6. With that, we're at the final matchup of the first round, Winnipeg versus Blues. It's going to be Hellebuck, who is the US goaltender, versus Binnington, who is the Canada goaltender. I really do think that this series is just going to come down to which goaltender plays better. Both goaltenders are known to steal series. I do see the USA goaltender Connor Hellebuck pulling his team all the way through. That's why I have Winnipeg in 7. With that, we'll move on to the second round where we have Montreal versus Carolina. And I think the Montreal crowd can only carry a team so far. That's why I have Carolina in 6. And once again, we have Toronto versus Tampa Bay. I think the Leafs are going to push it to 7, but Tampa Bay is ultimately going to take them out. Next up, we have Vegas versus the LA Kings. And this is another series that I kept flip-flopping on, but ultimately I have LA Kings taking it in 7. And now we have a Colorado versus Winnipeg. And I think Colorado figures out Hellebuck again, but not before he steals a couple games. I have Avs in 6. And then I think Carolina is going to continue to struggle to get out of the third round, and Tampa Bay is going to end up in the final again. And also being an Avs fan, you knew I was going to have the Avs in the final. With that, I guess we have a rematch of the 2022 Stanley Cup final with Tampa Bay and the Avs, and I have the Avs taking it.